All right, let's talk about something we all hear about, going green. But there's one area that's really, really tricky, and that's air travel. Today, we're going to get into the huge challenge of cleaning up our skies and a really surprising problem that's right at the center of it all. So let's just jump right in, because this is the big question, right? For our cars, the answer seems pretty clear now. It's all about batteries, electrification. But you can't just plug in a giant jumbo jet. I mean, the whole science of flying needs an energy source that's incredibly powerful, but also super light. And that, right there, is where the real problem starts.
Look, the airline industry gets it. They know they have a carbon problem. So they've set this absolutely massive goal for themselves, to hit net zero carbon emissions by the year 2050. And this isn't just about making engines a little more efficient. We're talking about a total revolution in how we power airplanes. And they're not just saying that. This is a genuinely tough nut to crack. Think about it. Making clean electricity or powering a car. We have options. But for a plane flying across the ocean, the alternatives are extremely limited. It makes aviation one of the most complicated puzzles in this whole global shift to clean energy. So what's the big idea? What's the solution? Well, right now, the industry's best bet is something called Sustainable Aviation Fuel, or SAF for short. It's really seen as the main path forward, at least for the next couple of decades. But as you're about to see, it's not exactly a simple fix.
So what exactly is SAF? In simple terms, it's a biofuel that acts just like regular old jet fuel. And the really cool part is that you can pour it right into existing aircraft engines without having to change a thing. It's what they call a drop-in solution. The whole idea is to make it from sustainable stuff, which could slash the carbon footprint of flying.
Now, the group that's really pushing this forward is called IATA, the International Air Transport Association. You might not have heard of them, but they are a huge deal. They represent pretty much all the world's major airlines. So when IATA decides on a direction, you can bet the whole industry listens up. And these guys have been around forever. Their history goes back more than 100 years. You can think of them as the ones who write the rulebook for global aviation, keeping everything safe and running smoothly. So this big push for SAF, it's just the next chapter in their very long story.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Where is all this new fuel actually going to come from? Well, a big piece of this puzzle takes us to India, which is shaping up to be a potential powerhouse for producing the raw materials, what experts call feedstock, that we need for these green fuels.
Just look at this number for a second. 10%. According to IATA's own studies, India could supply about 10% of the entire planet's potential biofeedstock. That is a massive piece of the pie, and it puts the country right at the center of aviation's green future.
So, how would they do it? Well, the most promising method for India seems to be something called the alcohol-to-jet process. It's basically what it sounds like. You take alcohol, specifically ethanol, the same stuff that gets mixed into gasoline for cars, and you use chemistry to turn it into jet fuel. Pretty neat, huh? And to give you a sense of scale, by 2030, all these key regions, including India, are expected to produce over 100 million tons of this stuff. Now, that sounds like a ton, right? But this is where we get to the main conflict in this whole story. Because it turns out, airplanes aren't the only ones eyeing this biofuel. And that creates this really high-stakes competition between two giant industries, aviation and cars. It's a classic tug-of-war over a very limited resource. Here it is, the dilemma in a nutshell. When it comes to green options, airplanes have almost none. Cars, on the other hand, have lots of alternatives. Electric, hydrogen, you name it. Both of them are looking at ethanol, but for aviation, it's pretty much the only option they have right now.
And this quote from an expert at IATA just nails it. Airlines could go and spend billions of dollars building new factories to make this SAF from ethanol, only to find out that the car industry has already bought it all up. That's a huge risk, and it could stop this green transition dead in its tracks.
All right, so let's just pretend for a minute we figure out the supply problem. There is still another giant hurdle to clear, and that is the cost. Because right now, flying green is really, really expensive. I mean, just look at this. It's pretty jarring. This sustainable fuel costs anywhere from 3 to 5 times more than regular jet fuel. That is an enormous price difference, and it makes it almost impossible for airlines to switch over without some serious financial help. So why should you care about any of this? Well, because someone has to pay for it, and it's pretty likely that a big chunk of that extra cost would get passed directly onto you and me in the form of higher ticket prices. Greener skies could literally mean more expensive flights.
And you know, this isn't some far-off theoretical issue. It's happening now. India has already laid out a timeline to start mixing SAF into its jet fuel, starting with just 1% by 2027. These targets are going to make the demand and all the problems that come with it very real, very fast.
Which brings us all the way back to a really basic question about our priorities. We have this limited resource, biofuel, and two huge industries that both want a piece of it. The choice you make here is going to have massive ripple effects for our sustainable future.
So let's just recap the core problem. Aviation is basically stuck. SAF is its only real green option for now. Cars, on the other hand, have other ways to go green. But they're both fighting over the same limited supply of ethanol. And the fuel for the planes is way more expensive. That's the whole situation right there.
And so we're left with this one last, critical question. With only so much biofuel to go around, who gets it first? Should it be the cars, which have other options? Or should it be the planes, which for the time being really don't? It's a tough choice that we're all going to have to face as we try to figure out how to build a cleaner world.